Shalom, friends of Israel. I am Sal Lizerbram, National President of Jewish National Fund USA. We are in day 27 of the war, and as always, we thank you for joining us for these important daily briefings. We're honored today to welcome our first guest. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Levine, Chair of Jewish National Fund USA Board, to introduce our speaker. Jeff?
Thank you very much, Sal. I'm thrilled to introduce Representative Richie Torres, who's a personal friend. He's a fighter from the Bronx who has spent his entire life working for the community he calls home. Like many people in the Bronx, poverty and struggle have never been abstractions to him. He governs from a place of lived experience. Richie's mother single-handedly raised him, his twin brother, and his sister in public housing project. Richie knows that I also, as a portion of my childhood, raised in public housing. I in the Brooklyn rather than the Bronx, but I think we're comrades that way. She paid the bills working minimum wage jobs, which in the 1990s was $4.25 an hour. When Richie grew up with mold, lead, leaks, and no reliable heat or hot water in the winter, he watched the government spend over $100 million to build a golf course across the street for Donald Trump. In 2013, at the age of 25, Richie became New York City's youngest elected official and the first openly LGBTQ person elected to office in the Bronx. At the city council, Richie stood out, and during his 7-year tenure, he tenaciously tackled problems big and small for the Bronx and New York City. He passed over 40 pieces of legislation, including protecting the city's affordable housing stock and tackling the city's opioid epidemic. I had the privilege to work with Richie in his community as a councilman, building affordable housing for seniors on Webster Avenue in the Bronx, a project that I can proudly tell you we just both attended the ribbon cutting for with the most satisfied tendency of homeless as well as lower economic strata people you've ever seen in your life, thrilled for the opportunity to live there, which I built and was supported by Richie's efforts. As the chairman overseeing NYCHA, he held the first committee hearing ever in public housing, which led to a $3 billion FEMA investment, the largest in New York City history. As chair of the Oversight and Investigations Committee, Richie has led investigations into the heating outages and lead poisoning at NYCHA, the taxi medallion scandal, the city's controversial third-party transfer, and the Kushner companies. As the chair of the Oversight, I said that, forgive me, Richie currently lives in the Bronx and represents New York 15 in Congress. He is a member of the Committee on Financial Services and the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party. I will finish the introduction by saying that the Jewish world and Israel does not have a better friend in Congress than Richie Torres. I had the privilege to speak with him last week when he was personally threatened with a demonstration at his home because of his outspoken rights of Israel to exist. And I was fortunate to be with him and my family at the AIPAC lunch in New York, attended by 1,100 people just this Monday, where his participation was duly recognized and noted. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce everybody here to my good friend and Congressman, Richie Torres.
Thank you for those kind words, Jeff, and it's an honor to be here with all of you. And I know Jeff because two causes that are central to his life and have become central to mine are public housing and Israel. I have not seen as much grief and trauma and shock since 9/11. And I've often, said to constituents of mine outside the Jewish community, imagine for a moment if American homes had been invaded and American civilians and children had been murdered and maimed, and American babies had been butchered, and American women had been raped. And 260 young Americans were gunned down at a music festival, and American communities, whole communities, were massacred, and thousands of rockets were fired into the United States. Can you imagine the overwhelming shock and grief and trauma that all of us would feel as Americans? And that is the overwhelming grief that is affecting not only Israel, but the Jewish community throughout the world. And so for me, it's as important as it's ever been for elected officials to show support and solidarity and empathy with Israel and the Jewish community in this moment of critical need. As far as I'm concerned, the October 7th terrorist attack on Israel is a crime against humanity that is so barbaric that it cannot be ignored. It cannot go unpunished. Hamas must be brought to justice. Israel has every right to do to Hamas what the United States did to ISIS and Al-Qaeda in the 21st century, what the US and its allies did to the Nazis in the 20th century. We have a moral obligation and a moral right to rid the world of its terror. And for me, this is about human decency. You know, imagine a mother whose child has been murdered in cold blood. I cannot imagine anything more callous or cruel than telling that mother, you had this coming. You and your people brought this upon yourself. And we have organizations like the DSA, the Democratic Socialist of America, that held a rally glorifying the terrorism of Hamas as resistance and calling for Israel's destruction in the immediate aftermath of Israel's deadliest terrorist attack. And for me, this is not about geopolitics. This is not about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This is about human decency. It is indecent to blame the victims of terrorism rather than the terrorists themselves. It is indecent to glorify terrorism as resistance. It is indecent to lionize paragliders who gunned down 260 young Israelis. You know, I'm reminded of a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King, who said that the greatest tragedy, history will record that the greatest tragedy is not the striding clamor of the bad people, but it's the appalling silence of the good people. And what we have seen from far too many good people, university and college presidents, public officials, academics and activists, is appalling indifference, cowardice, and silence in the face of barbaric anti-Semitism. And if we as a society cannot condemn the cold-blooded murder of Israeli children and civilians with moral clarity, then we have to ask ourselves, what are we becoming as a society? What does it reveal about the depth of anti-Semitism in the American soul? And so I feel strongly that one of the lessons learned from the aftermath of October 7th is that there needs to be a serious reckoning with the deep rot of anti-Semitism in academia, in social media, in corporate America, in the political arena, in every aspect of American life. At the moment, you know, much of Washington, D.C. is engaged in a debate about whether there should be a ceasefire, or the new buzzword is humanitarian pause. And I would make a few points. You know, no one expected the United States to enter into a ceasefire when 2,400 Americans were murdered in Pearl Harbor. No one ever called upon the United States to enter into a ceasefire with Al-Qaeda and the Taliban when 3,000 Americans were murdered on 9/11. And if Israel were to keep Hamas in power, it runs the risk of Hamas launching an even deadlier terrorist attack in the future. Right? Hamas has openly said that it will never abide by a ceasefire, that it seeks the annihilation of Israel as a Jewish state. And so those who insist that Israel should do nothing in the face of barbaric anti-Semitism and terrorism are holding the Jewish state to a deadly double standard that no other country, including the United States, would ever impose on itself. And so enough with the disinformation, enough with the delegitimation, enough with the double standards. And I'll end on a final point, that despite the tragedy and terror of this moment, I remain as hopeful as I've ever been that Israel will emerge from this tragedy better and stronger than ever before, more resilient than ever before. Israel is going to succeed on the strength of Jewish resilience. It's going to succeed on the strength of the U.S.-Israel relationship, which remains unwavering. There's no doubt in my mind that Israel will live on. So Am Israel Hai.
So thank you so much, Congressman. We need to find out how we could use AI to clone you some way and make thousands of you. But everything you say means so much to us. The chat is filled with God bless Congressman Torres and our love for everything you do. You know, we're moved by your solidarity and commitment. You're obviously a true ally. And Congressman Torres credits his connection to the land and people of Israel to his participation in a mission to Israel when he was newly elected member of the city council. At JNF-USA, we know how important it is to go to Israel, which is why we are proud to be one of the only organizations registering volunteers to travel to Israel for 1 week to provide needed relief. These missions will involve around 6 hours of labor daily, working in agriculture, activities with evacuees and families, community service assistance, helping with logistical roles at IDF Army bases, alongside the 350,000 Israelis called up to serve. The website will be live shortly. You can visit jnf.org/missions or email Dina Schiff. That information is being shared or will be shared in the chat. Next, we're going to turn to Sammy Alkarnawi, a local business owner from Mitzpe, Ramon. Mitzpe, Ramon has absorbed nearly 5,000 evacuees, and Sammy is here to share how he has taken in, housed, fed countless evacuees and soldiers during the war. Sammy is a visionary and has been extensively interviewed by foreign and local media in the past 3 weeks. Sammy, we're eager to hear your story. Over to you. Sammy, you're on mute.
Now it's okay?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yes, hello everybody. And what's happened in October 7, for me, it's like, not surprise, because I see in Al Jazeera people dancing 2 nights before in Gaza also. And I think, because I know the Medellin list, I think about October 7, 1972. It's 50 years about what's happened in October in Kippur. So do you hear me? Yes? Yes? Yes, thank you. So I tell my friend, I think in October 7, something going to happen to Israel. Some war, maybe it's from Lebanon, maybe it's from Iran, that I think. So for me, it's not surprise, because I know the Muslim people in the Middle East and what they're thinking, and they think about Gaza. So in Saturday morning, in October 7, I heard the shooting. I've been in Beersheba, it's like 1 hour from around Gaza. So I opened my doors in the hotel. I opened my hotel and I said in Facebook, people around Gaza, you're welcome. My hotel, it's open. So I am like 100% full. And they have like 5,000 people for 27 days. I help him. I give him a food, clothes, and people help me also for food and something like this. And without money and free, the president come in Israel, come to visit him. And I also try to explain in Arabic in the Middle East. Like yesterday, I have a American guy, he come with the camera. It's like Yalla. For 4 million people in the Middle East, they speak Arabic. So I speak about Israel. I speak about how Israel is good for people, for us, for Muslim, for Jewish, for everybody. And the Hamas, ISIS, it's animals, what he doing in Israel. So we feel so bad what's happened in October 7. And I think an Arab in Israel also, we are together here live, and we feel so bad. And I hope we win and everything will be okay in the future.
So Sammy, thank you so much for all that you're doing. You're a true friend, and we hope to see you in person in Mitzpe, Ramon very soon. Finally, I will turn over to Russell Robinson, Jewish National Fund USA, Chief Executive Officer. So Russell, why don't you take over?
Thank you, Saul. Congressman Torres, thank you. Sammy, thank you for as well as what you do. Sammy is a hotelier in Mitzpe, Ramon. You should know that Sammy is a Bedouin, and I say that because I want you all to know that this is about Israel. He is a great citizen of Israel, and Sammy is truly just one of those great people. I want to kind of go through, first off, so you should know what today is. On 1917, on this day, the Balfour Declaration was signed by Lord Rothschild, who at that point in 1917 gave the opportunity for the Jewish nation to be established in Palestine. And so today, as we're here talking about the war, you got to know parts of history and parts of our own only 4,000 years of being part of that land. I want to also start by saying thank you to Saul Lizerbram. Every day he's been on these calls as our president. We, as you can imagine, it's all live, things are happening, and we're constantly trying to make sure that we're informing you of everything that's going on, what we're doing in our center in Israel, Tali Sur, who you've heard from, and how we are every single day dealing with the issues, but dealing with them because you are making the donations to make things happen. And you should know that those donations have added up to already $27.5 million. $27.5 million. But as important is 21,293 donations. 15,000 people brand new to our campaign. So our campaign is of the major donors, but it is also of the people, and we're spreading the word, but that is up to you to also spread. And I will tell you that we have members of our Gaza Envelope Task Force, our Israel Envelope Task Force, now we call it, led by Betsy Fisher. There's Chuck and there's Ariel. There's a whole group of them. Bring them to your community. Have them come to your home for 5 people, 10 people. Have them Zoom in. They know the story. And let's utilize them to be able to tell our story and what we are doing. This past week, we talked about our work with our volunteers, and you've heard, Saul, that we're going to have volunteers coming internationally, but we're working with HaShomer, and every crop in Israel that is in the prime time of being planted or being cultivated is being done because HaShomer, one of our great affiliates, are working with all of the volunteers that are coming from throughout Israel. And you should know from the Haredi community that had a large group of volunteers coming and working in the farms. So it's everybody in Israel coming together. You will see a release coming out on lone soldiers. There's over 10,000 lone soldiers that are in Israel. Family members that want to come to Israel, obviously when they're hurt, want to give them a hug in their time off. And we're providing through Nefesh B'Nefesh the availability through a $2 million grant that will be available so that these families can come and give hugs to their family members. We have to remember the 18 people, 18. Last one was a friend of Sharon Joy's, who was killed from the Army in this time. And we have to remember individuals and people and know what's happening. We have to know the JNF future through the boxes that Michal Shaloch talked about that is on our shops. And we've already had over 200 plus boxes just ordered in the past week that are going to families and the soldiers. Utilize the opportunity, go onto our store and support our campaign through every effort you can. Send out the pieces from this Zoom call that is every single day and tell people. And if you missed it, you're going to see a YouTube link. It's on our YouTube page and thousands of people are viewing it. Make sure people are viewing and hearing the story every day, the real story of Israel and what is happening. We are making a difference with 7,000 people with disabilities through our LOTEM and our affiliates of Special in Uniform and Grow Feet. In Ade Negev, there's groups there, they can't leave. 164 residents that can't go anywhere. Their voices has to be heard and they're heard from you. And we're providing the opportunity for people to be able to work there, to bring their families there, to open up kindergartens. But that's because you are making the gifts and making it happen. And you have to know that we are also going and working on the day after. And the day after is a plan called Livnot Biachad that we're working on now with the government of Israel, with the Keren Kayemet L'Israel, with about 25 different organizations that is going to deal with the issues of tomorrow. But tomorrow will be the issues today as well. You have people in Eilat and in the Dead Sea at hotels or at Sammy's. They can't stay there for 2 months and 3 months, and they cannot go back home yet. And so we're working with the people in Ramat HaNegev and Yoracham and Arad and finding out places that have infrastructure and looking at bringing manufactured homes or other kinds of opportunity so that they have a place to stay in between going back to their own homes. But our plan of Linot Biachad will also be to rebuild together the entire area of the Israel envelope. The area from bringing it to that reveal moment when they could come and yes, still have the pain of what they're going to face, but they're going to at least have a community that they know that we were standing with them yesterday, today, and forever. And you got to be part of that. And it's going to be a multi-million-dollar campaign. But I have to tell you that we've already got our first $5 million gift towards that campaign. So you have to keep participating and keep asking and being part of what we're doing. You should know that starting tomorrow, a new $1 million match has been available to us from an estate, Mildred Popkin. Mildred was a great donor of us, a multi-million-dollar donor, and her lawyer of her estate, when heard about this campaign, immediately made $1 million available to us for a matching gift because he said that's what Mildred would have wanted. And when I heard there's no other organization she would have wanted to participate more in, and made it available to us. And that starts today and it'll go through next Friday, another $1 million match. So there's so much going on and there's so much work happening and there's a lot of stress on our professionals from Israel all the way through the United States. And we're going to come together at our conference. And at our conference, we're already seeing people signing up. So please send out information, get people to come to our conference. We have invited every national organization to come to our conference, for the exec and the presidents of those organizations to come as our guests, to be able to stand on our stage with us on Sunday as a sign of unity. We've invited them to come and put their information in our expo. So whatever the organization is, share it because we want to show the unity of the Jewish people, that it's not them or us, it's all of us together. So we have made that available and we're waiting to hear back from them. You should also know that with all of our events throughout the United States, the day before this happened and with the noise that is happening out in the world today, we take security very seriously. You should know that cyber attacks are against us every day. Our website was hit 3 times in the past 2 weeks. But we have full security that we took care of the day before, and we're constantly upgrading to make sure that everything is protected. And when we have our events yesterday and today and tomorrow, security is something that we have dealt with on an international level, national consultants, local people, and through the infrastructure of security that we work within the Jewish community. We take those precautions seriously. We take our issues seriously, but we have done it before. And sadly, we're pretty good at it because we've had a lot of practice. And at our national conference, we'll have the same kinds of security. So we're going to make sure that you're going to have all the things that you have to do about wearing your name badges, and you won't be allowed in without them. And there's going to be all those protocols that we're going to have, and you're going to be a little bit inconvenienced. So I apologize in advance, but it's because we take all of this very, very serious. So I'll close with this. It was just sent to me, and I was listening to a speech by Yair Lapid that he made in Hungary about the Holocaust. And in that, he asked the question is, what would you have done in 1933 when Hitler came to power? Would you have thought that it would have just passed and just forget about it and not acted? That the first pictures came of train loads of people that Americans saw. And a train load had about 1,250 people on a train load. 1,250 people on a train load. And what did we do? We weren't organized. We weren't strong enough. We weren't unified. We didn't have the strong Jewish National Fund USA that we have today, that we're out there talking to people and getting them to join our ranks and being part of our conversation. So that is not 1933 or 1939 or 1941. This is 2023. And the question that we never have to ask is, what would we have done? It is what we are doing. So thank you all very much. Saul.
Thanks so much, Russell. We're certainly hard at work on the ground in Israel and here in the United States. I do have a few important announcements. Some are new programming, so stand by for a minute so you can hear some of the new events. First, as Russell said, we hope everyone will join us at our global conference for Israel in Denver, Thursday, November 30th to Sunday, December 3rd. Now, more than ever, we need to gather as a global community to show our strength and unwavering support for Israel. You can register at jnf.org/global. And I look forward to seeing you there for a powerful and impactful weekend we will never forget. Today is the last day of our recent, not most recent, because there's a new one announced today, but a recent generous match. 3 generous partners from Denver, Colorado, Bob Lemke, Toby Mower, and the Shayna Glassman Foundation established a $1 million match that ends today. Double your impact by donating at jnf.org/support Israel and learn more about how you're making a difference in thousands of people's lives. Every dollar goes to those people and areas with the greatest need. Next week, we're launching an educational series with our incredible Alexander Muss High School teachers. Immediately after these daily briefings, you can register for various courses on understanding the moral compass of the IDF, the historical relevancy of the 1967 Six-Day War, and the origins of anti-Zionism on college campus. These are live Zoom courses for $18 and free for AMHSI alum. Visit jnf.org/defending Israel. Tomorrow, as we did last Friday, we will strike a different tone and bring you our program, Prayers for Israel, a time for reflection. We will have representatives from so many of our communities hearing from JNF-USA rabbis for Israel from Georgia and Florida, heads of Jewish day schools from New Jersey and Massachusetts, JNF-USA campus fellows, and more from our friends at the Israel on Campus Coalition. So we hope you'll join us 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thank you for joining us. Israel Chai. We stand with Israel. Thank you.